Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Family Business, where we discuss how family and your careers are intertwined. I am proud to introduce Heather Simonsen. She is the leader over at PQ Bypass. She's also someone that I've known for some time, and I've always been immensely impressed with the way that she drives her career as well as her family. Heather, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to see you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Can you give everybody a minute and just explain a bit about what you're doing currently? Because maybe not everyone knows what PQ Bypass does, and obviously your role there.
Sure, absolutely. So PQ Bypass is an early stage. We're kind of a later on the startup stage medical device company. We are pioneering some real innovative technologies for complex peripheral arterial disease. So right now we're focused on two areas in the SFA. One is a very novel procedure, which is percutaneous fem-pop bypass. So it's really kind of taking what was historically an open procedure and turning that into a minimally invasive catheter-based approach. We just actually two big wins on that. We just received breakthrough device designation from the FDA. So that is a breakthrough device technology. And we also completed enrollment in our IDE. So we've made major progress. And then the other pathway that we're pursuing right now, we have another IDE running, which is called Taurus, which is a standalone stent graft for the SFA. There's been no innovation in the US for 15 years in that space. So we just completed a record month of enrollment in October and expect to be finishing enrollment in that IDE by the end of the year. So it's really kind of a rare situation for a startup to be running two IDEs, let alone at the same time. That's really more of the domain of big companies. And so it's been just a fantastic opportunity to work with the team and lead the organization through that. My role at PQ is president and general manager, so I have day-to-day responsibility for all of the functions. Let's see, I've been with the company for about 4.5 years, so it's been quite a while, and it's just been fantastic. It really culminates about 20 years of experience that I have in the vascular space. So I've been kind of deep in peripheral vascular for the last 20 years of my career. The first 10 years, actually in Chicago, I started in hospital administration in business development and then did a few years in management consulting as a director of a large consulting group. And we focused on primarily risk management for healthcare organizations. So my background is, it's a real, I would say, kind of a different background than people that you see that typically go up the product management ranks or finance, whatever. I've got kind of the span of healthcare. And then little known fast fact about me, my very first job, I was a poli-sci major for undergrad, and my very first job, I actually worked in politics. I worked as a campaign aide for a state senator in Kenilworth, Illinois. My responsibility, on top of doing 12-hour days of canvassing, I would go with him to fundraisers, and I'd be the person to whisper in his ear before he'd talk to people about, this is this person and these are their interests. And so that was really cool. He lost. I ended up in healthcare.
So think about that for a second. I mean, talk about a giant ripple in your pond. If he wins, what happens?
Yeah. I probably would have ended up in Washington if he had won.
Was that an easy transition for you, or you just kind of, I'm sure the loss was tough, but after that, was it a shrug your shoulders, okay, I'll just do something else, or was that something that you were just agonizing over?
At that point, we were 21 years old, 21, okay. 22. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had an opportunity, and I thought, oh, that seems really interesting, and I loved it. I worked, I did all the analysis for a multi-hospital system in Chicago, working on where patients are coming from, why they're coming to this hospital, what the competitive environment is, patient satisfaction. So it was fascinating, and I absolutely loved it. And then I ended up starting business school at night, and kind of did my day job, went to business school, and then kind of ended up progressing into devices.
Now, the patients benefiting from that situation. Business school is a funny pathway because I can't tell you how many people were involved in something that was not business related prior, and then going to business school changed their entire career trajectory. Some people think, oh, it's just education. I'm like, it's not. It's a vessel, and whether it's an MBA or what have you, MPH, there's a lot of different routes to go, but the change in your direction and how fast you get to where you're going after you go get your master's has been just dramatic. I've seen it in hundreds and hundreds of backgrounds. When you went there, was it intentional when you went to get your business degree that you're going to get into healthcare, or that really wasn't where it was going?
No, I wasn't at that time. I knew that I wanted to run small businesses. That was the one thing. I knew I was interested in leadership and small businesses, and I was working in healthcare at the time. But it really and my focus, my major was entrepreneurship. So really learning how to value businesses, how to kind of bring them up the trajectory, and so that's always been that's always been a very big interest of mine. So, but it wasn't necessarily a healthcare focused endeavor.
So the career decisions you've made, because you walked through some of them and we've gone through a few together, some of the choices that you made, including your family in your decision and your daughter and what you wanted to do with all of that, how many decisions did you make where the forefront of your mind was, I need to do something that's family centric, or I need to be sensitive to the timing of all of this, versus, look, I don't have a kid, or I'm unattached, I can kind of do whatever I want. I'm curious about how many times family came into play when you were making these decisions.
Well, along the way, other than one major relocation to Europe that ultimately didn't pan out, the company was bought by Medtronic at the last minute. The last minute of my discussions, anyway. I've focused on companies that would allow me to be in California, in Silicon Valley. So, and that was because I didn't want to disrupt my daughter once she entered school. I wanted her to have a trajectory within kind of a stable base, a home base. So that limited me in terms of geographical focus. And then the other thing was around, there was a period of time when Libby was young, where I had to step back a little bit and integrate, kind of where my personal life took a little bit more of a priority in terms of how I spend the 8 hours of my day. For a brief period of time, I worked part-time, and that was so I could kind of balance that being a mom and parent, and also kind of continuing to move down the path of my career. But certainly there are jobs that I've taken that when I started, I said, listen, I have this commitment personally to my kid, and so I'm going to go and do that a couple hours during the week during lunchtime, and so I made it work. And luckily, I have been with companies that have been incredibly supportive. Maybe that's because they are healthcare companies, that could very well be, but it's been I feel very lucky in that sense of being able to I don't feel like I shortchanged my kid or my family during the process.
Well, I think the common denominator is not so much that it's healthcare, it's that it's you. When somebody hires someone and they build a certain amount of trust and credibility, less and less are they concerned with how many hours a week they see you. They just know, look, Heather said she's got it, and I'm going to go to sleep at night because I know that that's been the history. And so to me, it's more that, although I will say you're right, that healthcare has seemed to have more of a propensity to be more flexible, more aware, more comfortable with that, especially in the Bay. As well it should be. I mean, look how much productivity is done because companies like Medtronic and Abbott Vascular, they were letting people work remotely well before a lot of the major corporations were. And so I always found that to be really impressive because you would think they're stoic and very multinational corporate, and yet they were very quick to say, look, you don't have to live in Santa Rosa to do work here. You don't have to live in Santa Clara to do work here. And I think that changed a lot of the dynamic in the Bay, those two companies leading that forefront. So you mentioned something earlier that's been troubling me for as long as I've been doing this. I've always wanted to know, how do you name a clinical trial? Like, where did you come up with Taurus? Does someone sit there trying to figure out an acronym that makes all the words fit? Or is it like naming a hurricane where you have letters in order? Like, how do you decide what you're going to call it?
Yeah, that's hard. And one of my least favorite things to do is actually naming things, naming products. It always, I think there's so much pressure that I put on myself. With regard to the two clinical trials that we have going right now, when we were coming up with the percutaneous fempop bypass, which doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, you know, it's a mouthful for sure. I started looking at, well, for surgery, how are the vascular surgeons describing fempop bypass to their patients? And all of the patient literature said it's kind of like a detour. It's kind of like a detour around the blockage. And I said, perfect, detour. Okay, that works. And so we named the study Detour. We had Detour 1 in Europe, Detour 2 in the US. And then we fit the words to make the acronym, to make Detour an acronym. So we kind of worked backward from. So
are you flipping through a thesaurus trying to find a word that's the same that starts with D? I mean, is that what's happening? There's got to be a word. There's got to be a word.
You know, the third letter has a D in it.
Yeah. You start getting very loose in your interpretation of what an acronym is. I understand. Okay, that mystery is solved now.
Yes.
So over the years, we've known each other, and I've always been very impressed with that you have like this certain level of flexibility to you at work and at home. You know, your family structure is kind of unique. And if you're okay with it, I'd love for everyone to understand that, look, there's a lot of ways to have a family. And if you wouldn't mind kind of describing what it's like at your house, I think that'd be very compelling for a lot of folks.
Absolutely. So my primary household is Libby, my daughter, who's she's 17 and a half, and Julian, who is my very long-term partner. My extended family, who we're all very close, includes Libby's father, my former husband, Mike, and his fiance, Lael, and Julian's former wife, Vicky, and her boyfriend, Michael. We have, Julian likes to call it's a big tent. We have a big tent. We do holidays together. Mike comes over, Libby's dad comes over for dinner on Sunday nights. We all have dinner together. We do all holidays together. We travel together, and including extended family, my mother-in-law and my brothers and sister-in-law. And so it's, you're right. I think that there are a lot of ways to have a family, and kind of having one where everybody just, even though the primary family relationship changed, you still have this broad family that is there, because it does, when you are going through life, whether it's kid or dog or spouse, whatever, you need that extended family to draw on. And so it's been really fantastic.
I think because I have my daughter's 16 as well. She's 17 in February, so it's pretty close too, now that I think about it. I think it's great to have a village involved with the raising of your kid. I think they have a tendency to believe that you're kind of more than you are, and they think your word is gospel, even though they won't admit it. And so it's great to have 15 people who have a say in how she develops, as opposed to just one or two. And so do you hear her say things that maybe your in-laws or your ex or someone else says, you're like, where'd you pull that from? Oh yeah, that's right. He or she always says that.
There are definitely mannerisms. I mean, the genetics are strong. There are mannerisms that I definitely see, which are like, oh, you know what? You sound just like grandma. So, or you sound just like your dad. Which is uh, uh, which is really, it's really cool, I think. Um, I think that certainly there's a level of humor that we have. I think both in the primary family and also the extended family that shows up very much with my daughter. A very very dry sense of humor, and I think that her dad is he's just a funny guy. He's whip smart, funny, and very quick. And so Libby has picked that up very much. So I would say it's that's where I see it quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, your house has some comical components to it. We were talking about it earlier. And we had a little video of Martha. I don't know if she's still sitting there.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Heather has some of the largest dogs I know on the planet are in her house. So in addition to this, she needs a much bigger tent than she's imagining because they're, on average, are they what, 180, 190 pound dogs?
That's right. Martha is 170, and Ham, who's our younger one, he's still growing. He's about 150. The vet thinks he'll be about 180 when he's full grown.
How do you even take them to the vet? Like, what do? Do you have to get them a wagon? Like, what?
Well, when we got our last car, it was 90%. 90% of the decision was around, are the burgers going to fit in the back of that? Are they going to be comfortable? And will they have enough air? Will they be cool enough? So it used to be, how many kids can I haul around? Now it's, how many dogs can I haul around? We've talked about getting a third. And Julian looked at me. He said, "We're gonna have to get a different car, you know."
All right, so I just put two and two together. So it's hamburger. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah,
Now I get
exactly.
it. Yeah, for those of you who want to look it up, she has Lean burgers, and they're just these massive, beautiful, sweet dogs that make Heather very unique as far as talking to her, because we always talk about all kinds of things, and one of them is about, I check on her dogs a lot because I just think massive dogs are one of my favorite things on the planet. Look at the size of her head.
There's Martha. What if I can get a body shot?
I don't know if we have a big enough camera. Look at that.
Yeah.
There we go. Jeez. That's too funny. Well, look, I think that's what makes these kind of talks so fun, is I kind of get to know people, even the ones I've known for years. I always pick up information that I didn't know about them. And so it seems like because of your work and your personal life, you're exposing Libby to just so much in the world so quickly. I'm curious on the professional side, when she watches you succeed and do things that are, like you were describing earlier, what's going on at PQ, what are her thoughts there? Does she want to get into the medical? Does she want to be a leader like you? Or is she more, I'm going to make my own path. My mom's great, but that's not really what I'm looking to do?
So she definitely will make her own path, and she, I would say she definitely is a natural leader. She's been involved through her life in various extracurricular activities and things that she holds near and dear. If she wanted to go into medical device, I would have absolutely no objection to it. I think she would do very well. And so we'll see where she ends up. I try not to, those are some of the topics that sometimes get the teenager like, I don't want to talk about it. It's too much stress. So
I have some of the same things. Whenever I talk futuristic with my daughter, I usually get and it's funny, I can have very complex, deep conversations with her, but not about things like that. The future, she doesn't really want to talk about. She'll talk about like something from the past in complexity, but not that.
It's a lot of stress for the kids, you know. I mean, they put a lot of stress on themselves at this age. They're worried. They're very worried about failing, and so thinking about the future is just so big when they have all the stresses of school and applying for colleges, et cetera, et cetera. So it's I try to be just a presence, kind of just a presence who's there, an ear if you need one. So
do you think that's a function, and this is something that I've thought of, from kids who are academically advanced, and it sounds like both our daughters are in that bucket. Do you think there's a stronger feeling of that I have to succeed, that I need to make sure that I achieve what everyone thinks I'm going to achieve? Or do you think kids who are more B+ students, they're a little more loose and they're just more comfortable in their own skin and they're fine with whatever life brings them? And I've read a bunch of articles on that. I'm curious what you think.
So what I've observed, there is a lot of pressure in the peer group and I don't know if that is just here or if that translates to other geographies, but there's a lot of pressure within the peer group, the high school, to do well so one of the things we've actually done is we've downshifted. We really have not said, you've got to get A's, it's like, you know what? I need you to get some more sleep. That's what you need to do, because you're going to be better across the board with more sleep. And so and maybe it is that peer group of the kids that are a little more focused on their academics. Maybe that's where there is certainly more pressure.
I think it's who they run with. My brother gave me that advice early on, and he said one of the things that's interesting about the quote-unquote gifted programs for younger kids is that it's not so much the coursework, although that's part of it, and it's not so much the teachers, although that's part of it. It's the kids they run with, that those kids are more academically inclined, those families more academically inclined. So that's what's discussed. The expectation is you're going to continue advancing in school and get A's and do all that, and it's interesting to see that. And I have to always remind both my kids, I'm like, look, that's great for that kid or that family. I wish them nothing but well. But what happens here is just us. And I'm not too concerned with what anyone else got on the test or what GPA anyone else has. I really don't care.
Right.
Do you have similar conversations?
You're going to get a job.
Yeah.
You're not going to be living here when you're 30, regardless of what happens over the next couple of years. So, it's all okay.
Well, you're going through the college stuff right now. I mean, that's what I always tell most kids I know about college. I'm like, trust me, because I'm a recruiter. I see people and their resumes and where they went to school and how successful they are. And you'd be surprised how little of a correlation there is. Someone went to a big state school, university of whatever state you want, versus a well-known private school. I can't tell you how many times the state school is more successful financially or responsibility-wise, and it doesn't matter as much. But the truth of it is, there's certainly a bit of an earlier leg up if you went to Ivy League or something, Stanford, Duke, what have you. But the catch-up is pretty quick.
Agree.
Yeah, so we've definitely been through that. Now, you'd mentioned that you travel with all this extended family. I'm curious what that's like. Where'd you guys go?
Well, we go to Tahoe quite a bit. So, and that's been great. I mean, last 2 summers ago, we had 10 people for a week over the 4th of July, and we rented a big house right on the lake, including the dogs and my little nephew who was 1. And we had the dog Gates, and we ended up putting my nephew in the dog Gates
with the dogs
because of the time. What's that?
With the dogs?
No, dogs in the outside. Martha is fine with the little ones, but Ham was still a toddler himself, and so he saw this little 1-year-old as plaything, and Ham doesn't know he's 150 pounds. He thinks he's a tiny puppy. So so that was one of our more recent get-togethers, and we had my mother-in-law flew from Chicago, my brother, his wife, my nephew, my best friend and her daughter, who really is she's my sister. We've been together since we were 14. We're very close, and then we had all the extended family here, so it was really, really nice to get together and just kind of make a nice memory.
It's amazing that. And I'm sure it's not always perfect, but it sounds like everyone gets along really well and makes for great holidays and trips and things like that. That's out of the ordinary. You probably don't realize it because you're so close to it, but that's an extraordinary situation.
Well, we kind of say we've got a modern family, and I do know some people actually who are kind of in the same have the same model, and I hope that it grows as a trend, because there's a different way that you can structure your family, and everybody gets along, and it's good for everybody. That it just takes any of the drama, it goes away.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to communication and acceptance. And if everybody
Yeah.
can just say, look, this is what I'm comfortable with, and I totally accept what you're saying or doing, usually it works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people are tied to traditional family structure, and when it's not like that, they don't know what to do with themselves. Like, for some reason, they think the world's going to explode when
Well, yeah.
it's not a big deal. No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
There's something else about your background I always wanted to ask you about. Is you've been a part of how many acquisitions? 'Cause you've been acquired a bunch of times.
Yeah, probably about 5, I guess, off the top of my head.
And so, I mean, after a while, I don't care how humble you are, you got to start thinking, is it me? You know, I mean, I keep getting to be part of the package here.
No, no. In fact, that's really one of the pieces of advice that I got from my family early on was, as you move up, try to remain humble. And I guess I've never really thought that I had a part in it, but that I played my part for sure, but it wasn't me.
I mean, look, I've been doing this for 20 years, Heather. That's an inordinate amount in a relatively short career. It's not like you've been doing this for 50. You've been in it for 20, yeah. and it's out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
You do something else that I think is unique that I'd love to probe about is you're on boards of both personal and professional type organizations. And so
yeah.
Let's talk a bit about your time outside of the office and outside of your family, where it's kind of Heather time. Like, how do you choose those? Whether they're charitable or professional, it's up to you. But I'm curious about that because you have a really interesting mix of interests outside of work.
Yeah. So one of the things I started to do, I recognized early on that I can get very consumed with my job and to the point where I just kind of felt like I needed to put some structure in place, that I had some balance outside of what I was doing on a daily basis. And that would make me a better parent. It would make me a better leader. And so up until the Leonbergers came along, I had a goal of doing one thing each year that was completely different, away from my profession. For example, when Libby was in first grade, or right about the year before that, I went through a training program to become a music docent for kindergarten through third grade. And so I actually was the music teacher at Libby's school for when she was in first grade and second grade. Now, I was working at the time, I think I was at Abbott Vascular, and I would go twice a week. I'd take 2 hours a day and drive over and teach music to first graders and second graders, and then go back to work. And for me, it was number one, it was a way for me to stay engaged with my kid, but also it was incredible training because keeping the attention of a board of directors or VCs has nothing on keeping the attention of 36-year-olds.
Yes.
And keeping them moving, and for me, it just one of the benefits, it exponentially elevated my presentation skills. Yep. Because you have to be very, very big and animated when you're dealing with 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds. So I did that. I did an improv class. That was something that, and I've taken those. Actually, I've done 2 improv classes, and I've taken those exercises to my teams at various companies, because there's some things that are so very relevant about about teamwork and team engagement. So, and let me see, I climbed a mountain when I turned 40. With my three best girlfriends, we climbed Half Dome in Yosemite.
Wow.
So that was something else. So, and I encourage people that I mentor, I encourage them to do that, to try to carve out time for themselves, kind of make that a priority, because I think it helps you. I just think that it helps you in general to be a better, from a personal perspective, from a business perspective. On boards, so early on, one of the things that has always been very important to me is the advancement of women in business. And so I was on the early founding board of the Healthcare Business Women's Association San Francisco.
Yeah, that's quite a group.
Chapter,
I know several people in that. That's a powerhouse group of people.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I was, the first group there, and served as president, served on the national board of directors, and also served on the Medical Marketing Association board. And then more recently, I joined the board of the PYT, Peninsula Youth Theater, here in the Bay Area. So I know you've got theater kids. I have a retired theater kid. But for me, especially here in Silicon Valley, where there's so much pressure on STEM, there's so much focus, there's this whole other side of human beings that gets lost in that. And what I saw with the kids that would go through the different programs, the support, even if a kid didn't get a part, the support from the other kids, the support while they were in, the productions and the practicing, the rehearsals, and also the teamwork. I think that teamwork in theater is as powerful as what you see in sports, because if you're not doing your job and you're not ready with your lines, whatever, you've got to pay attention. You've got to memorize your lines. You've got to pay attention. And if you're not ready, when another role kind of hands over a line, it's your turn, it's like you're letting down the cast. And so I saw this amazing transformation, both with my daughter as well as with the other kids that went through the PYT programs. That was incredible. My daughter, she was an amazing presenter by the time she was 15, because of her stage experience. So for me, that was something. And when my discretionary time opens up a little bit, I will get back involved in something in youth theater, because it's a big, for me, it's a very important for our future people.
Well, I just think you kind of have to pay attention to what lights you up. And when you find something that does that for you, whatever it is, it's irrelevant what it is. It's just, this makes me feel like the most authentic version of myself. Like, I coach a lot of youth sports, and whenever I'm on the field, I feel like I am the most Matt that I can be, is when I'm there and I see the kids screaming by and the parents yelling and the referees blowing the whistle, like I'm home. I don't know why that it touches me. I'm not that great of an athlete, to be honest with you, but I love the coach. So anyhow, it's cool to see that side of you, because I knew there was so much more. You're just an incredible amount of layers of person. And so everybody, if you don't know Heather, I would highly recommend you get to, because she is unique. Well, I really appreciate you making some time to be on here. I knew you'd be a great guest, and for a change, I was right. Yeah. So is there anything I left out? Anything that you'd want to add?
Gosh, I don't think so.
We covered a lot of ground.
We covered a lot of ground. Absolutely.
Well, good luck with your tent. Good luck with the college decisions. Good luck with the burgers. Thank you for joining us on The Family Business. It's been a pleasure having Heather Simonsen on the show. Family Business, we're a family, what binds you. All the best. Take care.